right, great. So thank you very much for coming today. My name is Ezequiel, Head of Marketing and Sales. I'm joined today by Mathieu Huard. He's a co-founder and Head of Product at ShapeDiver. We're going to spend about the next 60 to 90 minutes explaining the new features we just introduced with ShapeDiver, our platform and our plugin. And then we're going to have about 30 minutes of Q&A. Let's just go through a brief description of what the agenda will look like. So first, we're going to explain to everyone how you can participate during this webinar. Then we're going to give a brief explanation of what ShapeDiver is. We're already assuming that plenty of you, if not the vast majority of you, are already ShapeDiver users, right? Or at least you've heard about ShapeDiver, you know what it is, right? So we're going to be explaining this briefly, just for those who are new at this. Then we're going to start right with the three parts of our webinar. Part one, which is building online applications. Right, in this, starting from this point, Mathieu is going to be, taking over the presentation. We're going to go through the extended file imports and exports, advanced iframe embedding, the detailed model and account analytics, the new viewer and backend APIs. We're going to mention them. We actually have a special webinar prepared just for API, so make sure you are subscribed to our newsletter so you guys receive the invitation. Then part two will begin. The part one should be about 45 minutes. No, Mathieu, more or less?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a bit more flexible in terms of the progression, but part one and two should take about an hour here together.
Right, fantastic. Then the work better together, we're going to explain the advanced sharing functionalities and the attribute system and its applications. These are pretty fantastic features. We're really excited to show everyone a little bit about them. We've been hinting we've been sharing some sneak peeks on LinkedIn about what this attribute system looks like, how sharing models with other users look like. But today we're going to be a little bit more in depth. We're going to go a little bit more in depth. Again, you guys can ask questions in the Q&A section, and then we can address them while we're explaining that, or at the end of our Q&A, our general Q&A. And then finally, we're going to have part three, which are next steps. So here we're going to talk about what we're working on. So the previous months, we've been working on what we're going to show you now, and in this part three, we're going to show you what we're currently working on, which is save states, teams or organizations, integrations into desktop design software, hubs for ShapeDiver, and versioning. And finally, we're going to have our Q&A, 20 to 30 minutes. Hopefully, we can make it within 60 to 90 minutes, and then so we can really be on time by 2 hours, and everyone can go about with your days. All right. So how to participate? So first of all, we're going to have some polls running. The second is questions during the presentation. You can of course leave your questions on the Q&A section. I think on your left-hand side you should see some sort of bar or column where there should be a Q&A section. There you can post your questions. While Mathieu's presenting, I'm going to be reviewing those questions. I'm going to be answering them, some by writing directly, or maybe I'm going to tell Mathieu to answer that question live while he's presenting. Otherwise, we can wait until the end section, the Q&A, the last Q&A section. Those are the questions, which obviously is the third one, which is the Q&A section at the end of the presentation. So hopefully we can finish on time. Whomever wants to stay at the end and can interact with us, we can even give you video, audio, and sharing rights. So if you have something you want to show us, if you want to ask your question via audio instead of just writing, we can give you that right at the very end. During the presentation, it's just going to be text. And finally, the last way you can participate, if after all this event you really like what you're seeing, you have more questions about your projects, feel free to reach out to us. We can have a private call. With some of you, we already had calls. Maybe there's something that intrigued you in this video, in this webinar. If there's something new that you learned that you want to ask us a little bit more in depth, we have a feature request. You want us to go a little more in depth about your specific project. So we can of course have a private video call with you right after this ends. All right, so let's get going with what is ShapeDiver. A little bit of a timeline here. So ShapeDiver is an online platform for hosting and sharing parametric models made with Grasshopper, right? That's why we asked you if you already knew what Grasshopper was, because it's integral to how ShapeDiver works. We were founded in 2016, and we currently have our headquarters here in Vienna, Austria. We're in Europe. We currently have over 7,000, actually we crossed 7,600 last week, 7,500 registered users from more than 15 different industries and 120 plus countries. What does this mean? This means that Grasshopper is used a lot in a lot of industries around the world, right? Which is great. We love to be part of this vibrant community. and a community that helps each other. You've been in the forum, not just on the ShapeDiver forum, but on the Rhino forum. Everybody helps each other. We really love being part of this community. We offer paid plans based on the complexity of your Grasshopper models and the traffic of your website. Maybe some of you already part of our paid users. Maybe you're part of our free users. Hopefully today you're going to see some features that might tempt you to go into becoming a paid user. But we also have a lot of great features for our free users, right? I think one of our goals is to make our free account as useful as possible. Yeah, hopefully you're going to see something that you'll like today. And finally, we've spent the last 18 months working on a new version of our platform and plugin, which we'll present today, right? So this is what ShapeDiver is, just a brief introduction. And let's get started. So yes, this event will be recorded, right? So if someone says, hey, you have to leave after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, yes, we will record it, and yes, we will share it on YouTube. We're going to add chapters, so it's going to be very easy to jump between chapters. If you have any questions, again, our email is right there, contact@shapediver.com, or you can send us a message via the Talk to Sales button on our website. If you're interested, if you want to hear about the latest, news, blog posts, we interview a lot of clients, a lot of use cases around Grasshopper. If you really like parametric design and Grasshopper, make sure you follow us on our social media, different social media. The ones we use the most are right there: LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. We use Facebook, but not that much. So if you really want to see like the latest and greatest, I would suggest LinkedIn and Twitter. If you want to see other interesting content, YouTube and Instagram is also pretty good. All right, so that's it for this presentation, Mathieu. So let's. I'm gonna stop presenting now. So I think now it's your turn here.
Okay. Yeah. So as we've seen from the poll, a lot of you are already ShapeDiver users, so that helps me a bit steer the content one way. I'm not gonna spend too much time on the very first steps of how to turn a Grasshopper model into a ShapeDiver model, but I'll still briefly mention it. So essentially, I'm gonna walk. I built this very simple example, but that should be enough to show all the new features we wanted to show you today. So we're gonna go through steps and use this example to introduce everything that's new. Everything existing and new in ShapeDiver. So I'm working with this tower model. It's a very simple model of like a twisted tower that is built from a floor plan. It's just a rectangle in this case, and with a couple of parameter: height, angle, and floor height, so which determines the number of floors of the building, and a number of divisions that creates that control diamond panels. So essentially, it's you can see this as a an early study of a facade for this tower. So the idea here is to use this very simple example to, first of all, create a model that, with a few simple parameters that can easily be shared, viewed online without Grasshopper, etc. Right? So that's like the very traditional way to use ShapeDiver that most of you already know. I'll just quickly mention that here we have, I have a definition that does not contain any ShapeDiver components, so any components from the ShapeDiver plugin for Grasshopper. But this is already a definition that will work, be compatible with ShapeDiver, and can be updated online. And as most of you probably know, all the inputs that I have in my in my definition will be processed and exposed on the ShapeDiver platform. And all the components with the preview turned on will turn into visualized components on the platform. So that's the only time probably of the webinar that I'll actually go through the process using the new interface. Maybe some of you did not switch to the new interface yet. So I'm going to upload exactly this file that, again, does not contain any ShapeDiver components yet. So on the new platform, you don't have to fill any information before uploading. You can directly upload and immediately see if it's going to be denied. You don't have to go through the process of choosing a name, a description, etc. You get a result. and all of the settings now can be specified after once the file is uploaded. In this case, again, I have all these inputs, these sliders that I have in the Grasshopper definition are exposed here in the platform, and all the geometry that I left the preview on. I have my floor levels. I have the envelope as curves, basically these boundary curves, and the panels here. Everything is this like bright green here, which is the color we have for default materials in the new platform. In the old platform, we used to have white, but for a lot of users, we realized, it was hard for them to see if they had left the preview turned on for some components, and to debug a bit the model. So now we have this very noticeable color. If you see it, it usually means that you have left the preview on for some components in your definition. Okay, so that's it for the new upload process. Of course, you can play with settings and save your model and publish it on the platform. But of course, now you might want to curate a bit more what is visualized and how the interface looks like on the platform. And that's where we can start using some components of the ShapeDiver plugin, but also some new way to organize a bit the definition that we process now on the new platform to help you organize things a bit. So the first thing you might want to do is to organize and so order and group all the inputs that you have in your definition, such that instead of dumping all the parameters in an arbitrary order, like it was the case on the old platform, you can pick the order of parameters and also maybe group them in groups that make sense for the within the logic of the model. On the new platform, you can now do that simply by ordering vertically in the canvas. So the order you have in your canvas here is going to be respected when you upload. So and it's going to be kept. You won't have to reorder parameters when you re-upload the model. So that's the first factor. And the second factor is that you can use native Grasshopper groups to group your parameters into different groups that make sense, and to help basically guide the users of the online platform in different categories of parameters. You can give each group the name, so the native Grasshopper name, and this name will be kept once you upload the platform in the drop-down menu of the group on ShapeDiver. So that's the first thing that's new now with our ShapeDiver update. And the second thing that you might want to do, which is also something that ShapeDiver users know, is that, of course, instead of previewing traditional Grasshopper components, we have a set of display components in the ShapeDiver plugin that help you decide what you want to show, and also define materials that are compatible with our online viewer. So before I start showing these display components, which are part of our plugin, just a quick mention that also one of the new things is that now the plugin is entirely managed through the package manager. So you can launch the package manager in Rhino. In Rhino 7, it's a common package manager. If you're working with Rhino 6, it was a beta feature in Rhino 6. So the command is called it's called test package manager. So just add test in front, test package manager, like this. In my case, I'm working on Rhino 7 right now. So if I launch the package manager, you're probably familiar with it. You can find a lot of plugins and install them directly through this interface and manage their different versions. So in the online tab, you can look for ShapeDiver and then pick the version you want to install. In my case, it's already installed. I have ShapeDiver, and here I have picked the latest version we have released. If you really want the latest versions with the latest features, make sure you include the pre-releases in the list. Otherwise, you'll just get the stable releases. So here our last stable release is 1.9.1, but we already have 1.9.2. We will release in the next few days 1.9.3 as a beta, and it contains several interesting new features, including one that I will mention today, which is attribute visualization. So stay tuned for this release that's coming up. In my case, I'm going to work with this release, so it's installed. And again, users familiar with ShapeDiver already know the display category. But in the new plugin, if you have already installed it, you might have noticed a lot of new components. We now have two traditional display components, two different ones. The legacy ShapeDiver display, which is pretty much the one that was already in the old plugin, and a new GLTF2 display. There's pros and cons to using one or the other of these components. Some of them are pretty technical. The materials that are associated with them have different types of texture definitions and different inputs. So you can play a bit depending on what you need. But just know that the GLTF2 display, in most cases, is the one we would recommend now to use. It's a component that will turn everything. So everything you connect to this component will be turned into a GLTF2 file. Some of you might be familiar with this format. It's a widely spread format to visualize 3D on the web, compatible with WebGL. And which means that all the outputs now that you visualize in ShapeDiver are also GLTF2 files that can be used and visualized in other viewers and in other different types of environments. So it makes those outputs more compatible with other software. So in my case, I will use a single component, so create a single GLTF file that will contain all the geometry of my definition. And in order to do that, I can do it pretty much exactly like you are familiar with if you already use ShapeDiver, which is to create a tree of geometry and associate this tree with a list of materials. So I can assign a different material to each of the elements in my definition. So in this case, I can, for example, have a black envelope. I think those are the panels, yeah, red panels. And a third material would be blue, for example, for the floors are red and the panels are blue. So that's a way to send everything at once, right? So I already prepared a version of this file that I'm gonna open here. I think actually in my preparation I had 3 different components. That's also possible. It creates 3 different GLTF files in the viewer, all with their own material, different materials. And here I already grouped all the geometry parameters in a group called geometry. And all these materials here, I associated them with colors and even here metalness and roughness for the panels. And I grouped those parameters in a display group. So that's the exact same definition we saw in the first upload, but with those new components and with the parameters grouped and organized. And this is now how it looks in ShapeDiver. So I have my 2 groups of parameters here, the geometry parameters and the display parameters. And we can see here that the different parts, so my envelope, the floors, and the panels, metal panels, are displayed with with native web materials. So yeah, that's pretty much the first aspects of the plugin that help easily build a model, an online interface with like parameters that are well organized, well structured, that you can share with non-technical people, and with a rendered, I didn't really make too advanced rendering here, but like you can tweak and cater the rendering to give, again, non-technical people an idea of what you're working on. So now that we have this second version of the model, is when I will start talking about stay a bit on the platform and introduce features that, again, a lot of you already know, but that have been improved on the new platform, and also completely new features. One of the completely new feature on ShapeDiver is that all the models, in theory, all the models that are uploaded on ShapeDiver are now compatible with augmented reality. So there's nothing to do. Augmented reality will be available if you open the model in an augmented, on a mobile viewer or any device that is compatible with AR. Both Android and iOS are compatible. So you'll have this button. Of course, I can show you on my laptop here, but if you go on ShapeDiver and open any public model, you'll see this button, and you can open the model in augmented reality. Just a quick mention, because a lot of our users have already tried this this feature, and they're sometimes a bit confused about how to scale and how to scale the models, etc. So we have a set of new settings associated with augmented reality. First of all, you can disable it if you don't want to have it on your model. But if it is enabled, there are essentially the settings now let you define in which units system the model was built inside Grasshopper, which will help scale to the real size the model. So in my case, I can see that the building is defined in meters, and here so I can see the bounding box of the building. If you happen to have designed your Grasshopper definition without really thinking about any unit system, we also have the custom option with a custom scaling factor that you can define. Once this is set and saved in the settings, you will be able to see the model in the right size in augmented reality.
Yeah, I just want to add something here real quick. Obviously, we're working on this being compatible with most or all browsers or mobile browsers. Right now, if you're on iOS, you need to use Safari. And if you're on Android, you need to use Chrome. But soon we're going to release an update that will allow you to start AR from any browser, regardless of the operating system. But if you go right now, today, right after the webinar, please use Safari or please use Chrome. Therefore, yeah, just for you guys to know.
All right, but let's go back to not augmented reality, but the traditional way to visualize ShapeDiver models. And one other new feature that I wanted to mention in this new viewer is that we now support HDR environments. So first of all, in the list of presets environments, you have a lot of HDR presets now that are available. I think my colleague from the viewer development told me, yeah, that I could try this one, which is Kai. Yeah. And that's, these HDR maps are actually used also for lighting. So they're taken into account to compute lighting on the model. So this is something that needs to be taken into account in the new viewer, because we still also have the physical lights, just like in the other viewer. But you might want to define an environment map first and then see if you need additional lights, physical lights in the model. For example, if you want to have physical shadows. So that's it for those viewer settings. On top of these new ones that I mentioned, all the ones that you already know with the ground plane, grid, etc., are still compatible. Plus a few advanced rendering settings that are really for experts in WebGL and GLTF. So now I would like to take this model to a new to a feature that you already know. So this is so first of all, just to make it clear, everything that I showed up until now is available to all the ShapeDiver users. So even free users have access to, you know, all the plugin components I showed. Augmented reality, all of this is available to all the users. But now I'm going to start talking about features that are not available in all accounts, as again most of you might be aware of. Typically embedding, iframe embedding, and even direct embedding using the API, which require, at least for iframe embedding, a designer account. All our accounts have free trials where you can test all of these features easily, of course. So in our case, there's two conditions once you have an account that allows it to do iframe embedding, to use the iframe embedding feature. First of all, there's a model setting where you need to allow embedding. It's allowed by default, but just make sure it's checked here. And here those two elements are used for using with the API, but in the case of iframe embedding, that's all you need to do in the settings. And once this is allowed, the second thing you need to do is to make sure that in your account settings here in the domain section, you have enabled the domain that you want to embed on. So this is all very standard too. I just wanted to show it. Yeah, so that's the page I usually use for a quick iframe check. So that's the domain I need to embed. I'm gonna add it here. So here I have a, I'm doing a try. I created this account for the webinar. I have it's a business account that contains 10 domains. There's only one domain in designer accounts, but the local domains do not count towards this limit. So you can, I think actually we're releasing this probably tomorrow or in 2 days, but you'll be able to use like all of these type of local testing domains and add them to the list as well. In this case, I allowed this domain, and I can now go back to my model. We were on step number 2. And here we can check this new interface where you can actually define a lot of settings of the iframe already, including styling settings. So there's a color scheme including 4 colors for different parts of the iframe that you can use to fit with your website's branding, for example, or any purpose you have. Defining the size, of course, showing or hiding the various buttons that are inside of the 3D canvas. And also a new setting. You can here define a logo of your company or of the application that you want to create by just linking, adding the URL of the logo, of the image. And once you're done, so here I'm gonna let's say try to fit a bit the color themes I have here. So use some green for the primary color. That's all I change. Copy the iframe code, and I get here my iframe. So here it's because it's a bit, yeah, I can show it like this. And as you can see, it follows the layout we have on the platform. But here for this primary color, which is the color of parameters and of the drop downs, I am now using the green that I defined. The other colors control the various part, the background colors, the buttons, etc. So you can play with that and customize a bit the aspect of the iframe. Okay, so that's it for the new version, the improved version of the iframe embedding that we have.
Maybe here would be a great time to ask the next poll related to sharing. No, Mathieu, should I share it now?
Please go ahead and share.
All right, so this is the next poll. So I'm just going to appear on your screen. So were you aware that ShapeDiver can be integrated into external websites? So did you know you could bring ShapeDiver outside of ShapeDiver to your own website without needing to send your users to ShapeDiver? Were you aware of that? All right, so the vast majority was aware. That's great. We're doing a good job communicating our features. That's fantastic. So probably new people here joining today were not aware. So iframe embedding is one of the two ways we allow. The other one is direct embedding, which is a bit more advanced to give you access to our API. We'll discuss it in a bit. All right, so publish result. There you go. You should be seeing it now. So 93% knew that ShapeDiver can be integrated into external websites, which is great. All right, fantastic. All right, let's continue. Thank you.
I was just going to show quickly a version with a logo that I added here during the loading, and then we see the iframe. Okay, so that was the second part of working on this example. Now I'll go back to Grasshopper for a bit to start adding some more features to this model, and I will present features that again the ShapeDiver users are very much aware of, which is the importing, so file imports and file exports, right? So we've always had components that allow, that turn into for importing upload buttons when you're on the platform, so that end users can upload their own files. And on the other side, buttons, the export components that turn into download buttons, so basically to export, CAD data or images or text from the model. I'll start with the export component. So let's just say, and I'll try to keep it simple. Let's just say I'm interested in the panels in this model. Is this the panels? Where are they? Yeah, that's the one. So I want to export my all the panels as meshes. I will use the download export components, connect all the meshes, and give the file a name. So that's all. Not a surprise for ShapeDiver users. Now, in the new version of the plugin, we've replaced. We used to have an input to define the file format, and this version was limited because it did not let you specify export options. So the export options that Rhino exposes when you export a file. So now that's why we have all of these new components that contain export options, and you have to plug in these export options as an input to the export file. So let's say if I want to export my mesh, so panel meshes as an OBJ file. I'm picking OBJ because it has a lot of export options. I can use this component to define, and those are exact. I mean, sometimes some of the export options in Rhino don't make sense in the context of ShapeDiver, so we don't expose all of them. But most of the traditional export options, so in this case, when you export to an OBJ file, are now exposed inside Grasshopper, and you can connect this component to say, yeah, I'm gonna export my OBJ and use all of these export options. The second thing that's new with the download, so the export components, is that now you can test locally also the results. You don't have to upload to ShapeDiver and click on the button to see, what the contents of the file look like. You can right-click directly on the export components, export locally, test export.obj. Here it is, and no closed meshes. Okay, maybe I should not have picked OBJ as a thing, so I'll stick to 3DM, which I used earlier. 3DM does not really have export options besides the version of Rhino. In this case, I'm in Rhino 7, so I'm gonna export to the version 7 of the 3DM file format. And here, if I export, it should work fine. And now, if I open this file, just to check, downloads, yeah, that's the one. Here, I just exported this plain meshes for all the panels. So that's the two new things: export options and local testing of the exports. But users of ShapeDiver already know that you can do a bit more with the export components. In particular, define export properties, such as names, layers, colors, plot colors, etc. We already had a component to do that, but now it's been replaced by a new component called export attributes, which is the first time I talk about our new attribute system, and this is like a specific example of our new attribute system. So essentially, this is the attribute system is a way to define metadata that you can then attach to all the geometry that you either visualize in the viewer or export in these using these export components. So in our case, I'm gonna already open the file I prepared because that's well, that's not so long, but okay, here it is. In our case, what I did here is that I'm exporting everything. So I'm exporting the envelope, the floor levels, and the panels. So the facade panels. And here I do it all with a tree, but essentially that's the idea. You can use an inject attributes component to define geometry that you want to inject attributes into. In this case, I inject those export attributes, which there's 5 reserved export attributes: name, layer, color, and plot weight. All of those are, if you're familiar with Rhino, all of those have a native meaning in a Rhino document. So in particular, if I export to 3DM, all of these are compatible with a 3DM file. For the sake of the example, I kept it simple. I'm just putting all of these different, so the 3 different geometry types that I have in my definition. I put them in on 3 different layers. So I use the layer input here, and I define 3 different layers. What I get after I have attached these attributes is my geometry. So here I will look at it. So that's all the geometry I'm exporting. But really, this geometry now contains metadata. And I can inspect even what I did by extracting attributes. So if geometry contains attributes, I can extract the attribute objects that I stored in the geometry and deconstruct them to check their contents. So in my case, if I use text panels here, you can see that in all of these 3 elements here, I only have 1 attribute in all of them, which is a layer that I just stored. And I can see for each of the elements, I have 1 layer. Some of them are on the envelope layer, some of them on the panels layer, some of them on the there should be also another one. Anyways, let's check. I will now test what I just did. So I will hide this, export this locally. I think. Open a new document. And export. Here we go. Okay. And now if I open this, no, example export, not text export, sorry. If I look at my properties, I should have 3 layers, and each of the 3 different families of geometry are on a different layer. Of course, I can do the same with colors, names, like all of these attributes that are compatible in this.
We have one question, Mathieu. Here, someone is asking if they have to update to the latest ShapeDiver plugin in Grasshopper to be able to work with file inputs, especially through the viewer API.
File inputs, or
yes. So he says, do I have to change my file input component from version 1 to version 2 in existing Grasshopper definitions?
No, all the old components are always backwards compatible. So even with the new viewer API and everything. The only thing is, I mean, yeah. So that the thing is that I'm going to introduce the new file input component now, and there's a lot more features and a lot more things that you can do with it. So, but yeah, in theory, no need to change all the components in the file. I would recommend it, if possible, but it's not going to break your application.
All right. That answered your question? All right, perfect. I think that answered.
Okay, I just wanted to show also that okay, I'm not I don't want to do tree magic right now, so I'll just simplify it a bit. I'll share all these files anyways after the webinar, so you'll have access to all of them. I just wanted to show. Wait, I will. Yes. That you can another type of attribute you can do. So this is like reserved attributes, so the export attributes, but our attribute system can cover any custom attributes too. So you can construct attributes using the construct attributes component and define any key value pair. So let's say here, instead of using those export attributes, I'm gonna store an attribute called type, for example, so a custom name, and I'll store this attribute using the inject attributes component in the geometry I have and export it. And in this case, type is not an attribute, so it's not what we call a reserved attribute that matches with like a native Rhino object properties. It's completely custom. And in terms of Rhino documents, the custom attributes are exported into user text. So if I now export this file, so export locally, I'll replace. I'll just create a new one. And if I open this one, now I can inspect all the geometry that I exported. And if I get the user text of this object, I can see that I have one key type with the value panels. So you can export all these custom attributes as user text inside Rhino. We'll see that using custom attributes is also the way, when we get to the new attribute visualization feature, that's the way that's the type of attributes that you can visualize in our online viewer. But for now, I will stay with, so that was it for like the upgraded export components. Now I would like to introduce so I will not save this file and open again. Yeah, this one. Okay. The new import component. So and this is the one feature that we have that's only compatible in Rhino 7 right now, because in Rhino 7, using the new Rhino compute features, there's a headless file imported that allows us several things. The first thing being that we virtually support all file types that make sense as import types now. So you can see if you double click on the import geometry component, we support all of these file types now. And the second thing that we can do now is also, so again, coming back to the attribute system, is importing objects with a lot of attributes. In particular, they're going to come with all these reserved attributes that we saw that we can export. So name, layers, colors, spot colors, etc. Whatever is defined in the document that we import is going to stay. And again, also like in case of custom attributes, we also support user text. So if you have a document with your user text stored in the document, so this user text that's stored in geometry will be converted to ShapeDiver attributes that you can then extract and process in your document. So in this case, I will say, okay, I want to replace my my rectangle here and the parameters associated with it. Instead, I want to make it possible for users of my online application to upload their own floor plan that I should close, otherwise it's not going to work. Yeah, like this. And let's say, so you're going to store floor plans as a 3DM file that contains some user text. In my case, I just use height and angle. So the height of the building and the angle of twisting of the tower. So if I set height to, I don't know, 2000, and I define another one, angle 80. Now I can save this this curve as a 3DM file. Okay, I saved it as example export 2. I already had another one called floor plan here that I created earlier. I'm going to use this one. So here I use this, and oh yeah, I had visualization turned off. Here we go. So here it's using. I can check it here actually. That's a curve I have in my file. So one polyline curve. And here I use the extract attributes component to extract the two attributes that I stored, which are height and angle. I have this component here called access key, where I can just directly search for a key. I know I have height and angle keys in my file. And that returns the value associated with this key. And so then now, instead of using all these sliders to define a rectangle and the height and angle of my file, I use as input a floor plan, so a polyline curve with user text stored in it as input parameters. And I get I run my entire definition on this. So if
we have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nadine is asking, could you explain what the application/forward and model/forward prefixes in the list of all possible import format means?
Well, okay, yeah, that's so those are the what we call the MIME types associated with those files. So it just helps our online platform check if the files that you try to upload are part of the list of compatible files that we support. So it's a bit of a UI question. We could replace the names here with just the names of the file format that we support. This is more this is where we can see that ShapeDiver has been developed by very technical people, because we kept these names with these technical names. But essentially, if you just look at this after the slash, you can easily see the which file formats are supported.
Okay, we have a couple other questions, but I think these ones we can wait for the last Q&A.
Okay, I'll just check how these import and exports work on the platform, and then we can take a couple of questions maybe. So this version of the file that we just looked at is here now. So as you can see, I have the import component that I added is now also visible here. It's alone outside of groups because I didn't group it. I left it here by itself. I could have grouped it. And I still have some components. So my material components are still here, etc. And here I can, well, in this case, I had already stored this file as input, but I can upload the floor plans that I have and directly see the corresponding visualization with this floor plan. So I import my file and use it as input of the definition. And we now see we have a separate tab for all the exports inside the model. So here the one download component that I created here is accessible through this button, and I can click on the button to obviously download the file and open it in Rhino, and I can see exactly what I just exported. Right, so here we have with this model we already have like a full workflow of of importing and exporting data to and from a ShapeDiver model, online model, right? That's pretty much it for import export. So if there's questions related to this feature, maybe I can take a couple. Ezequiel?
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah. So okay. So do you plan on integrating IFC export?
Well, so if you look at the at the list of exports that we support. So now we have export options for all these geometry types. So typical, CAD documents that you can export from Rhino, and that we now support. So in this case, this is something that we have to add manually. So if there's like file formats that you're missing, you can check the plugin and request them on the forum to request that we support new formats. We're always adding more. I think what is it? FBX. Yeah, FBX is going to be in the next version of the plugin. But of course, we still also support exporting images, so bitmap in various file formats: JPEG, PNG, TIFF, PNG, GIF, and text files. Right, and in terms of exporting text files, we support all of these file extensions. So, for example, G-code, CSV, XML, JSON, which is used a lot by web developers who work with ShapeDiver, and IFC is supported as a file extension. So essentially, IFC files are text files, right? So you can build them using, for example, Geometry Gym, which we support, and export the IFC file as a text file at the end. So I think that answers the question.
Yes, and there's another one. Is JSON still supported as input format?
Yes, so both here I showed again that it's the same, so it's pretty symmetrical on both sides. We have the import geometry, but we also have the import bitmap and import text file. And here this import text file supports JSON, XML, CSV, or plain, so TXT formats.
Perfect. We have one related from the previous section. So can we add logos when directly embedding the viewer and not just on the iframe? Because we just showed how it's done in the iframe.
Everything that's in the iframe is obviously available for the developers using the viewer API. And I'm pretty sure, and I can link to it. I don't really want to go look around in our documentation now, but our viewer documentation has really grown a lot in the past few weeks. So if you go to help.shapediver.com, we have a lot of pages, including code examples. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is a great place. So you guys can check help.shapediver.com, which is our new documentation. We used to have support.shapediver.com. That's already, it's still there for viewer for I don't know, legacy purposes. But help.shapediver.com is we're putting a lot of effort on bringing it up to speed. So, and if you have any questions about the documentation or missing documentation, you guys can go to forum.shapediver.com and ask questions. Okay, so for example, this question: how can I add the logo when I'm embedding directly?
Exactly.
Our team can then point you to the right section in the documentation.
Yeah. So if parts of our team know, they can answer maybe directly in the Q&A. I don't know if that's possible. I know here with the API, you create a viewer and a session every time. And I'm pretty sure the logo is just an option of when you create the viewer, right? So you can here specify a URL for a specific logo.
Right.
Again,
yeah. So right now, Michael sent me a sandbox that I can share here.
Okay, so you can share it.
Things, yeah, here.
Again, when the webinar would be 3 hours long if we talked a lot about the API today. So as Ezequiel mentioned at the beginning, we're going to have a specific webinar for the API topics.
All right, the next question is, can I export a screenshot of the viewer as a JPEG?
Yeah, sure. That's also a viewer feature that I'm sure, or there's a code example, or at least there will be one very soon. But yes, that's possible.
Yes. So we're pretty active on our forum. So we try and make sandboxes for these examples. So feel free to reach out and we can maybe build one for you. It says, in the old platform, I always saw the loading wheel in the upper left corner. Did you get rid of it in the new platform? This is by Lucas Schiller.
Yes, this is a round of updates that we're working on, and that is going to come soon. Is in general improving the loading, so the feedback, during the initial loading of viewer and during parameter updates, and we're still exploring different options to do that, to improve on what the old viewer had. So that's something that's going to be available soon. In terms of if you're using the API, there's already a lot of events that tell you when an update starts, when it ends, when the viewer starts loading, when it ends loading. And so if you're developing your own application with the API, you can already specify your own spinners and logos and behavior when these updates are happening.
All right.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm again on the platform.
We are at the 1 hour mark. Mathieu, we are at the 1 hour mark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's I'm on the platform again, so it's a good opportunity for me to show a bit how we improved in general the sharing and giving people access to the files you upload on ShapeDiver. So
maybe you can ask the 2 polls. So before we move ahead, these are the last 2 polls. Yep. So the first one, this one is okay. Are you constantly collaborating with other Grasshopper users? So are you constantly collaborating with other Grasshopper users? This means I am not the only Grasshopper user in my team. I am constantly collaborating with other Grasshopper users in my team. So if you can vote, that'd be great. Right now, it's almost 50-50. Some yes, some no. Remember, a Grasshopper user is a technical user, someone that can actually understand Grasshopper. So I'm not the only one. Someone else also understands Grasshopper. We're actually 50-50 right now, a little bit. Wow, that's a very even 50%. Published results. All right, so a little bit winning the yes, I do. It was 50-50. It was very close. It was very close. All right, so thank you for this one. So half of you do collaborate with other Grasshopper users, which is great. And another quick poll that we have for you is, am I constantly collaborating with non-Grasshopper users? This means, am I sharing my Grasshopper knowledge with people that do not know Grasshopper? Therefore, I need to build something easy for them. Right? So here, a vast majority, okay, 60-30%. Okay, let's wait a little bit. I think it's going to be 50-50 again, a little bit. All right, so just a few seconds. If you can vote, please. All right, publish result. All right, so 64%, yes, you're constantly collaborating with non-Grasshopper users, and 35%, no, you're not. So you're probably either you're only for your own, or you're collaborating with other Grasshopper users. All right, great. This helps us a lot. All right, so we can continue.
So yeah, I'll present in any case the range of possibilities to again give access to a ShapeDiver model. And here we're talking about native ways to do it using the ShapeDiver platform. Of course, we've just seen iframes, and using the API you can build your web application. So that's like the advanced. But with this new platform, what we want is to make it easier for people to work together. Without having to write any code or really with built-in features of the platform. So of course there's the ways that that already existed and that you already know from the old ShapeDiver platform. If you make your model public, it's accessible through to anyone through the public gallery on ShapeDiver, right? So here I can see all of the public models that anyone has published and search for them. I see here those are so. Between public and private, we have a different color scheme, and here the private ones I see are mine. That's why I see that. Each of these models, for example, if we look at this this Lamborghini that my colleague Michele has uploaded earlier, that looks beautiful. I can so again access it, and I can also now, with our new bookmarking feature, I can bookmark it so that I can easily keep it in my library. So now if I go to my library, I can see that the library has different tabs here with my models, the ones that I uploaded, the pending ones, so the ones that are still going through script checking, for example, or that I didn't finish setting up. And then I have my bookmarked model. So all the ones I bookmarked, I can easily find them quickly here in my library. I can bookmark public models, my own models, models that people shared with me, anything. So I can really, that's a fast access to everything that's interesting for me. Now the second and a new way to share models now with non-technical users and in general users who do not have a ShapeDiver account, but without, yeah, so without making the model public. You might want to keep your models private, of course, if you're working on a project. So this second way to share is to make the model private, but enable link sharing. If I do that and I enable link sharing, the model is private. No one can see it on the ShapeDiver platform. It is not a public model. But if I go now in the link section here, in the model view page, I can see that I have this this link now that I can copy and paste, and anyone with the link. So it's only people who have the link that are able to access the model, and the model stays private on the platform. Additionally, you know, so it's not a fully, of course, anyone with a link can access it. It's pretty standard, you know, if you know Google Drive and these kind of tools. We added a bit of added security to this feature, which is that if you disable link sharing again, then of course all the people that had access to the link you created will lose the access, right? So you can give a time limited access like this. So that's a way to share with people that do not have a ShapeDiver account. Now, the last new way that we do is obviously, again, like, and that's why Ezequiel asked these questions. If you're part of a team with several ShapeDiver users and you work together, is to share a ShapeDiver model with another ShapeDiver user, and that's the most secure way you can share it. There's really only this user that will be able to look at this model. So I'll do it here. So for the sake of you know, showing a bit how the feature works, I logged in another account on a different browser because I can't have two accounts in the same browser. And I will share with this other user I created. I think I called it webinar 2. Okay, so I can look for users who you know, have a public profile on the platform here. So this is the other user I created. And I can share the model with this user. And as you can see, there's checkboxes. I can share different levels of permissions to my model with this other user. Let's say for now, I only share the view permission. I share it. I'll see now that this user is added to the tab of users that I've shared the model with. I can update the permissions. So what I share exactly with this user, again here, and I can or completely remove sharing with this user. In this case, if now I go, so I'm here logged in with this other user, and I'm going to reload my library page, I can see that in the Shared With Me tab, this model that was shared with me is now available. I can access this. It's a private model, but I can open it, and I can view its contents. And what I can view, of course, exactly corresponds to what level of permission this other user has shared with me. So for example, this other user has not shared the export permissions here. So I do not see here even the category exports to download the files is hidden from me. If now I update these sharing permissions and I add the export permissions, if I reload here, I will now have access to exports here and be able to
this compares when you're sharing the other way, the non-secure way. You're basically sharing the entire model, correct? You're sharing all its exports, you're sharing all the parameters, so you cannot really block from someone having access to the exports if your model has exports. Would that be correct?
Hide it. You can hide it, but it's hidden for everyone then, right? So here, this it's a way to curate a bit different levels of you know, permissions, and you know, with in mind that, you know, one day we might we want users to be able to monetize their models using ShapeDiver, and that's you know, being able to see something and check how it looks is different than being able to export and actually get CAD data, maybe manufacturing data or other type of useful data from the model. So that's it for the, like, all the different sharing options on the new platform. And while I'm on the platform, I will show one last new feature of the new platform. If you're familiar with ShapeDiver, you probably already know the analytics that we have. So analytics are a way to check the consumption of credits of that your model has caused in the past. So we have like a lot. You can pick time periods and check. It's a bit more advanced in the new platform. You can check where you spend credits, depending whether it was exports or embedded sessions, computations from backend APIs, etc. I don't want to spend too much time on this. This is really a feature that we have in order for our users, our paying users, to be able to track their consumption and see if where they're spending basically their ShapeDiver credits in. It's a bit more advanced than on the old platform. There's more fine-grained details, but it's essentially the same in the same spirit. Now, what is completely new, on the other hand, is the computations analytics. This is a feature that is essentially gives you a complete list, so you can again like select a time period. In this case, I uploaded this model today, so I just have the filter set for today, from the beginning of the day to now, essentially. And I have a complete list of all the computation requests, so any parameter change, any file imports, anything that I change here. So for example, here, if I change this from 15 to 10 divisions, I can, it always takes a few minutes to come, but in a few minutes, I will have this new computation that I just did. And I have detailed information about, how much time it spent on our servers in Grasshopper. So that's the solver time, the storage time on our servers, and the size of the outputs. Or in the case of exports, I can also see computations and exports. So if I think I did export something. Yes, exactly. So I clicked on the button twice, right? And I can see here how much time it took to solve, store, and to and the size of the file export. In particular, that's going to be useful to profile models, because if the model, you probably know that all our different types of accounts have a different time limit for computations and a different size for the outputs and for the exports. And it will state very clearly here in red and with more details that you can explore here what failed and why it failed, essentially, right? And this is a feature that will keep evolving so that we can provide the best tools possible to really optimize models, improve them, and really understand what's happening. Something that also comes with this is that you can recall all of these computations. So let's say someone exported something at 2. Yeah, that was, I uploaded in the afternoon, so that was the first export. If I want to recall and check the file that was exported, I can click here on this load button, and it's gonna recall exactly the file that was exported at the time. So here it's calling it again. That was it. And now I can export and check exactly the file that whoever triggered this compute request, this export request, got on their side, right? So, for example, if someone said, "Hey, my file is empty" or whatever, you can really check what's happening, and maybe there was like one of the limits was exceeded, for example. So that's you can also filter by just directly filter by the timeouts and the computations that failed, so that you can see easily if there are issues in your model. So that was the last big. Well, no.
So we have some questions here.
Yeah. Okay.
Should we go through them? So I think we answered one. It says, in Rhino Grasshopper, it's easy to get performance analysis of every node. Do you plan to indicate in V2 or via the API how many seconds ShapeDiver spent to compute on your side, and throw errors when there is any issues? I think we just showed that with the Computation Analytics, right?
Obviously, we are going to welcome the feedback in the next few weeks, because this is something that we're going to keep improving. Especially what you might have noticed is that we miss right now a notification system that actually sends notifications to your account when one of your model times out, for example, or when something was shared with you. This is something that is going to be here very soon. But here, I didn't go, something that we will improve too, but you already can look, is a lot of statistics about each of these computations and, which step fails. And Exactly. It lists here all the computed components in the tree, in the dependence tree of Grasshopper. And especially you can see the last component. So if, for example, the computation fails, you can see at which component exactly the computation failed when this computation request was sent to our servers. But obviously this interface is like the first. We wanted to put it out fast because we think it's very useful, but we're gonna improve it to make it a bit easier to navigate in the near future. Other questions?
Correct. So yes. So can you see the parameters and inputs in the computation?
Yes,
analytics?
yes, you can. Again, that's something that we will improve a bit because now, right now, it's so you can see the values. So, for example, here I have colors, I have numerical parameters, but right now they're identified by their IDs, which is the people using the viewer API know what the IDs are of each parameter, right? But of course, we should also show the names of these parameters in the interface.
Yeah. So we're going to work on improving how this looks. As Mathieu said, this is V1 of this, so we hope to improve the way it looks so it's easy to understand. This also helps us on the development team or on the forum support team to help you guys troubleshoot your models a lot easier. Okay, so some questions here. I mean, I think we can leave this for the last Q&A. There's some interesting ones, but I think we should move on and then just collect this for the Q&A section.
I just have 10 minutes left, essentially, so pretty much on schedule to talk about attribute visualization, and then we can just keep half an hour for Q&A and talk a bit about what things that are coming to.
Perfect.
Right?
Yeah, we will go through all of your questions, guys. So make sure, or girls also, make sure you post your questions, and we'll answer them today. And like I mentioned at the beginning, we can even have a private call to go through your specific use case. All right, so let's go through the last 10 minutes then.
Yes. So here I'm gonna open the very last version of this file that I had created, and show. So I had this. I did not insist on it earlier, but in this model, what I do is that I do a quick analysis on each of the panels of this facade, and for each of the panels, I compute two values, two metrics, the area of each panel, and also the maximum curvature of each panel. Right, so like two values that I might want to explore if I'm doing like an early design stage exploration of this project. So each of these values, and again, this is something that I pre-built because I don't really want to get lost in tree magic during the webinar. But essentially, I have all my panels here in the list, in an ordered list, and I have all the area values and the curvature values in corresponding lists. And now I'm essentially building my attribute objects and attaching these values. So on top of the other values we already had, so the ones I showed earlier, I had layers. Layers. Okay, and also materials. So that's what I have to mention. So essentially, now I'm in this group. I am attaching a lot of different, basically very specific attributes. I used our attribute system and our attribute components to really define for each element in my model a set of unique attributes that is related to this element. And now I end up with all of this geometry enriched with a lot of metadata, right? So like my envelope, my floor. So I think I have, for the floors, I add two things: floor area and level height. So two attributes for each floor, and the panels with the curvature and area. And something that I do, so before I introduce this component here, I want to talk about something that I do, which is that's if you're gonna now display, if you want to display this geometry using our GLTF components, there's two ways to assign materials to geometry. There's the way that I showed earlier in the webinar, and that that again a lot of you are already familiar, which is that I have my geometry inputs, and I have a material input, and this material is going to be used for my geometry. And I can even use, to some extent, I can even use several materials and assign, I can use a list of materials and assign each element of this list to a branch of my tree of geometry. But what we can do now using the attribute system is be very flexible and basically have a unique material for each piece of geometry. And you don't even have to use trees anymore. What you can do is that instead of using this material input, you can inject material attributes. So directly a material attribute and using a material component. So the material can be used as an attribute. It's compatible with the attribute system in each piece of geometry. And even if I have lists here now, every single piece of geometry contains a material. And if I want to, if I connect them to my display components and I hide those, I can see here that even if I don't use a material input here, these all contain materials that I assigned for each different geometry type. So that's, and by the way, this is something that I wanted to mention at the beginning, but hey, I had to forget at least one thing, which is that just like kind of like for the export components, you can also test how the GLTF looks like locally, because you can save the GLTF file that is produced, that is created by the GLTF material. So here I can save this file. Let's save it here. So webinar. And now if I open it, and the thing is that, again, like I said, it's a very portable file format that can be opened in the ShapeDiver viewer, in a lot of other viewers online. And that is even supported by Windows as a file format. And there is a GLTF viewer in Windows. So I can just double click on this file and check its contents and check all the materials that I stored in it. Of course, it looks a bit different because of environment, lighting, etc. So the default settings here are not the same as in our viewer, but essentially you can see how it's, you can check and, again, like make sure you don't have any issue in the model. Okay, so that's for the GLTF aspect and using materials again as attribute, as part of our attribute system. But now, if I want to do more with these attributes, and in particular, something that I know several of you were eager to discover today, which is to use the attribute visualization feature in our online viewer. I cannot use our standard display components and even the new GLTF components, because these attributes are not stored in the GLTF in GLTF files. What we did, and I'm not, again, this is going to be a part of a more advanced webinar, so I'm not going to insist on it, but with the whole new ShapeDiver platform and all the different parts of our infrastructure, we are working now with a new file format that we created specifically for ShapeDiver that we call SDTF, and that contains, first of all, maintains the data structure that is sent from Grasshopper. So all the trees and lists and stuff are stored inside the format on top of the geometry. And also that, of course, is compatible with our attribute system, so that stores the attributes inside as well. So right now, and that is the one I mentioned it briefly at the beginning of this webinar, that is the one feature that is not publicly, so directly available in the plugin now. It's going to be in a few days, so we're releasing this in a few days. If you can't wait for a few days, contact us right after the webinar, and there's a little trick. We can give you access already to it. And basically, once we give you access, you'll see this new ShapeDiver output component here. And this ShapeDiver output component is the way to, instead of just creating visualization geometry, like our display components do, it creates structured and enriched, a set of structured and enriched geometry, essentially, right? So I can see that here, the visualization works, all my materials are here, but on top, if I right-click here, I see that this component creates a GLTF file that is used to visualize in the viewer, but it also creates another type of file, an SDTF file, and that's where the magic happens, in particular for a lot of things, but in particular for attribute visualization. So now if I upload this file, including this new output component, This file will look very similar to the last one I uploaded, again, because this new component creates the same visualization that the other display components create. So here I have my tower with all these materials. But I can now switch from the standard rendered mode of the viewer to the attributes visualization mode. And when I'm in this attribute visualization mode, I can open the attributes tab here and start exploring a bit the model. So first of all, just like the layers, the attribute called layers is used natively. When I export a file in Rhino, it's going to use the layers inside Rhino to assign geometry to layers. We also have a specific way to deal with layers in the viewer. So here we have four. I think we'll change those default colors because the black is a bit aggressive. But essentially, I can hide or show all the different parts of the model that are stored inside the model. And that's for the layers. But then all the other custom attributes now can be visualized using the viewer. So in particular, if I select the area, so the area attribute, which is stored inside the panels, I can now visualize the values of areas from a minimum value to a maximum value. So the viewer automatically scans the model and finds the minimum and maximum over the entire set of objects that contains these attributes, and display a color gradient. For example, I can switch it to blue-red, so blue for the minimum values and red for the maximum values. In this case, we can see it makes sense, right? The smaller areas here in blue and the larger ones are more red. I can also update the minimum and maximum in case I want to zoom around like a specific, or discard, let's say, everything that's an area under 4,000 and above 9,000, let's say. And here I can see the gradient. Everything that's completely red or blue is discarded, and I can see that most of my geometry is still in this range that I just defined. So that's it. When you visualize attributes, you can still play with the opacity of the layers. So for example, here the panels, I can make them a bit less opaque, and I might want to visualize also an attribute that I stored in the floor levels. For example, the areas. So here, so again, areas, and here I have my floor areas visualized between 0. I guess I have some parasite geometry with like a very low value somewhere here. Let's say if I everything, what is it, blue, red? So everything is very high. So let me try 30,000. 30,000. Yeah, I must have like a floor plan with area 0, so it didn't compute the right range here. Oh no, wait, it's 330,000. Wow, I was missing a 0. Anyways, I'm not sure I will find the right value to display it correctly. Let's check if I display the floor height instead. So essentially what I wanted to show here was just that I can have different, yeah, okay, no, this is empty. Okay, there must be some issue in my model. But I might have attributes stored in different, different groups of geometry in my model, and I can visualize several of these attributes at the same time. So in this case, area and curvature are both attributes that are present on exactly the same geometry, so the panels. So I can't, I either display one or the other. The priority is the highest one, and then the other ones. But if I want to display attributes related to other types of geometry, I can also do it at the same time and play with the opacities here to show or hide different types of geometry.
All
okay.
Right. It's 7:30 already.
Yeah, it's exactly time. Yeah. So we can switch to the Q&A.
Well, I mean, we wanted to also mention the next steps. No, briefly
Yeah,
mention what we're working on.
I think if users have questions, that's the most important, that we address questions. And when questions start lowering a bit, we can, I'm sure I'll have some time to mention some of the things we want to do in the future.
All right. So I'm gonna read the first one. So is there a re-upload possibility for the models in the old platform? I could edit the model and re-upload, update the Grasshopper file. Now I need to create a new model.
No, yeah, that's a good question. This feature is still here, but in a different form. So essentially, if you upload a new model, what you can do is import the settings from a previous model. So here, for example, I can click here, import viewer settings, and I can look for another one of my models. So for example, I had a 02 tower, I think. Yeah, so here it finds this model that I already uploaded, and I can say I can import one or several or all of the settings that were stored in this older model. So it's not really a re-upload button, but anyways, in the old platform, the re-upload button was not really a re-upload button because it ended up creating a new model as well, right? So that's just a new way to do it in the new platform, which yeah. I
think you're gonna say it.
Okay. So that's it. Yeah. So that allows me actually to I would segue into two features that will come. So actual versioning, right? So actual re-upload, but better than re-upload. The ability to upload new versions of your model, but also to like go back and forth between versions of the model, right? So for example, if you have a new version and you see there's a problem with it, revert to a previous version. And that's going to be especially interesting with a feature that is really going to come in very imminently now, which is the ability to re-download the Grasshopper definitions from models that you've uploaded in the past, right? So, when you have the versioning, you can go back to previous versions. If you lost your file or whatever, you can get back the Grasshopper file and start working from it again. And especially if you start working with teams, so with the organizations feature that we are also working on, then it allows to easily work and version files between different users of Grasshopper. So that's one thing that will happen soon. And the second thing that I wanted to mention about this, I forgot it, so I think I'll take more questions. And
all right. I think yeah. So versioning is we're excited about that one. It's going to allow like to have the features that Mathieu explained. So will there? I mean, I'm just going to go through
Go ahead.
Will the requests to the viewer API made by a testing account, so local host, count in the total credits allowed in the account? So the answer is yes. So exports will count. So if you're basically export every time you're using a ShapeDiver model, you're using our server time, right? So when you're generating an export via ShapeDiver, that uses server time, which costs you a credit. So it doesn't matter if you're executing that from a local host or from someone using a browser elsewhere. Exports will definitely count against your monthly credit limit. So yes,
it's a bit more obvious in the new analytics screen, because that's what has been expanded from the previous platform, is that you can really check where the credits go. So sessions, exports, and just computations. And for each of these categories, where those credits were spent. So in case of viewer sessions, of course, this is sessions of embedded models with iframes or with the viewer API. So there's only one possible source. But for example, exports, you can check if they were made directly on the ShapeDiver platform, in embedded models, in iframes of direct embedding, in desktop clients, which is one of the features that I might touch a word on, but I think a lot of you have seen our Illustrator videos and all these clients that we're working on, or using the backend API. So all these four sources for exports are possible. And for computations, obviously, so parameter changes when they're done on the platform and when they're done on embedded models, viewer, iframe embedding. Computations do not count credits, but through clients and backends, they will. These backend requests that are made to the models will count credits. Not one call, one credit. It's gonna. I think it is 10 calls.
10, yeah. Yeah. If you have any questions, you can send us a message directly, and we can address your use case and explain how that would be reflected against your credit count. All right, next one. So, in what time frame is the monetizing option planned? Because you were mentioning that we might be doing some monetizing.
I thought that was going to be interesting, but yeah, I mentioned it because this is really our vision that really ShapeDiver can be used as a marketplace where Grasshopper definitions can be monetized in a secure way, really, and but also plugins. For example, the plugins we support could be monetized if you have your own plugin and you want to give access to other users to it. But this is something that will definitely come after we're done with this phase. So let's call it ShapeDiver 3.0, not 2.0. The 2.0 is really what I just showed, plus the versioning that I mentioned, and really the organizations is a big part of it. That's something that's my segue to. I find them. That's something that we're also finishing right now, which is the ability to create an account for everyone in your organization, and basically create a space where you can see all the models from your team, and the administrators of the team can give different levels of permissions to different members of the team, and easily monitor and make it easy for a team to work together on ShapeDiver.
So teams or organizations, we're still unsure. We should do a poll, like, well, how should it be named? Teams or organizations? But this one's coming imminently. It's coming, let's say, within the next 4 to 6 weeks. It should be done.
Yeah.
That's being very conservative. We are very interested in releasing teams because we see a lot of big companies already with a lot of users using ShapeDiver. We want to give them these great features so they can collaborate between each other. But okay, just to answer the question of when are we planning this monetization option, I think the answer would be most likely 2023. Right? I think this year is a year of perfecting ShapeDiver 2.0, perfecting the features, and listening to your feedback. And once we're done with that, hopefully, we can grow as a company. We add some clients, so it allows us to fuel the development and to, release this monetization option for 2023, which we think is pretty interesting. Imagine selling your Grasshopper files to someone who wants to manufacture, furniture, jewelry, some sort of different applications for your Grasshopper files. So 2023 seems the most likely. All right, next one. Can computation details be accessed via the API when embedding directly? So the computation analytics, can they be accessed via the API?
Right now, it's not possible. So that's it's perfect because all these questions talk about even like the smaller features we have. Right now, the API, the embedding of models. Okay, so there's two different levels. There's the iframe embedding and direct embedding. But yeah, in both of them, the computation analytics are not available. So
you have to use ShapeDiver. You have to use ShapeDiver to view them.
Yeah, to view them. But we will have a second version of the iframe embedding that will essentially, be basically have all the platform features, right? So at least the ones that make sense. So you could decide to include in the iframe computations or different types of analytics. That's something that I do not have a timeline on, but definitely, let's say, part of this round of features that we are working on right now.
All right. So will there be a solution or suggestion to counter the computation fails? So I think what he means is when they see a computation fail in the computation analytics, is there some sort of suggestion on why it failed?
This is yes, to the extent that I showed, right? So I mean, the first thing that will happen is that with the notification system, you will get warned. Well, I mean, depending on the notification settings you'll pick, but let's say if you check the box I want to be, to receive a notification every time one of my model times out or fails, the computation fails. You receive notifications and be able to directly check the entry, the computation that failed or the export that failed, and check, if it was like way above the time, which parameters for which parameters it fails. And then you can check locally do these parameters, is it actually a problem in my Grasshopper definition that for this set of parameters my definition takes 1 minute instead of 30 seconds, or yeah, like as I was mentioning earlier, as we improve a bit this like detailed analytics, check which component failed, maybe even get the time that was spent in each component, a bit like in the bottleneck navigator in Rhino that you have with Mathieu Huard, right? So all of these, we definitely want to improve those.
Yeah,
yes.
And I think it helps our development team, our support team, to help you troubleshoot your model. No, I think it helps whenever you are using the forum or private support, if your plan supports that. Our use when you share your model, our team will be able to help you to say, okay, this exact parameter failed, and our team will be able to help you, go through that specific combination of parameters and thus come to a solution a lot easier. But it is half because we already give you the automated responses, and the other one is going to be a little bit more manual, and our team can definitely be involved via the forum. Yep. All right, next question. Can you share some ideas on the ShapeDiver bridge for Shapeways? Yes, and this is fast. We are not supporting it anymore. We used to, but we're not supporting it anymore. Why? Because basically we had to update it all the time because of their API. I don't know. It was just a part of the product we didn't feel we needed to keep supporting or keep developing for. In reality, anyone interested to build their own ShapeDiver bridge can still do it by having access to our front-end API and our back-end API. So yeah, we created a version, but we're basically not bringing it back, but it's still possible to build it. No,
let's put it this way, that one of the big changes in ShapeDiver 2.0 that is not so obvious, by looking at the platform, is that we've completely refactored the entire infrastructure, the entire backend, and also worked on APIs to easily access, the platform, access the geometry backend, and on top of APIs, even SDKs, so like these development kits for different environments. For example, we will have a .NET SDK released extremely soon, TypeScript, etc. So essentially, and our platform uses these tools, these APIs, right? So like we are essentially releasing as tools for developers all the tools you need to completely rebuild the ShapeDiver platform, for example. So that's one thing that's really really new, is this ability to really consume ShapeDiver in different environments in an easy way, and with the idea to spread and to have the community also be part of spreading ShapeDiver in other places, right? And so if you have followed our news and our videos sometimes, and some of the some of the past webinars we've done about this, that part of this spread is something that we are interested and want to actively work on. So for example, these clients that we're working on, right? So the Rhino client, a Rhino client for ShapeDiver, where you can, even without using Grasshopper, load ShapeDiver models and directly use them with your Rhino document. But also Adobe Illustrator, for example, if you want to work with Curve and essentially integrate ShapeDiver inside Illustrator. We're thinking of the ones that make sense for us to develop, or at least, but even if we do, we see those clients as more of like, well, they are very useful, and everyone can see the potential of the immense potential in using parametric modeling directly inside, parasiting all of these other software. But they also act as inspiration, right? This is what is possible to do with ShapeDiver now, right? And like a large majority of these integrations and stuff, we plan to open source as much as possible so that people can see how it's built and how it can be reproduced in other cases.
Perfect. So actually, our CTO, regarding the previous question, our CTO is confirming that Computation Analytics is available via the API. So if you wanna, yeah, if you wanna dive deeper into this, please leave us a forum post, a new post, and he will make sure to answer your question. So Computation Analytics can be accessed via the API. Obviously, you need an account, Designer Plus, Business, or Enterprise that allows you to have access to the API, or you can start a trial. And you'll be able to retrieve that information via the API. All right, next question, and this is a very common question, Mathieu. So, will you be making videos explaining how to use the API in the future?
So I think there's several things here. What we realized is that developers sometimes don't like to read very, very long documentation, which we do have, and prefer to work through examples, snippets. So what I briefly showed it at the beginning is that we're rebuilding the viewer part of the documentation to be based on like very short, to the point code examples that can really be copy pasted, directly adapted, because it's using this code sandbox, which is an improved version of CodePen for the developers who know it, and really like using these snippets to get started fast. I think in terms of videos, yes, the answer is also yes. Essentially, our team is going to work on like a webinar that's going to showcase and insist on like all the features of the viewer that can be used through the API. So all the features, advanced features that are not even possible yet in the platform now. So animations, interactions, clicking, dragging, geometry, gemstone rendering, all of this. And I think on the path to the webinar, probably as we work on examples and stuff, we will release like short explanation videos for several features.
Exactly. So we're planning a YouTube series around the API. They're going to be led by one of our lead developers. And we're also planning an advanced webinar. It's going to be like a showcase. It's not going to be an advanced. It's going to be a showcase of everything that's possible via the API. We're going to show you, as Mathieu said, clickable elements, draggable elements, animations, all sort of advanced rendering stuff, just for you guys to be inspired of what can be done with ShapeDiver. And we're going to have a series of documentations and video tutorials that are going to be ready to be watched and consumed as you go through that experience yourself. So yes, so we're actually planning on ramping up our tutorials on the API, because we love the Grasshopper community. You guys are very hands-on. You like learning everything on your own. So we understand you want to learn also. If you already learned Grasshopper, why won't you learn HTML or JavaScript? So obviously, yeah, we want to contribute as much as possible. All right, next question. Can you explain what the option parameter validation under general settings on the web platform is about and how to use it?
Yes, I can do that. Let me open one of my models again. This existed already in the old platform and has been used mostly by our users that work with very complex model. Well, I won't use it on this one because there's only one parameter. So let's look at the simple one. So if I enable parameter validation, which is, I think, in general settings, yes, okay, save. What it does is that instead of immediately updating the model when you change parameters, it shows you that this is this update is pending. So there's a star on all the pending parameters, and it only updates the model when you click on the apply button, right? So this is especially used by our users who have complex models that take longer times to update, and if they want to change 5 parameters, they don't want to wait 5 times for the viewer to update, essentially. So that's pretty much it, I think. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it's a better way to, it's user experience type of thing. You can choose whether you want your users to have live feedback or wait until they choose their parameters and then compute everything in one go. All right, next question. If I
by the way, I can also use this to show what I'm seeing now that it's okay. I'm going to use another one to show a quick small feature that's already also available on the new platform. That's new. is the history, right? The parameter history. So if I update parameters, I now have this this back and forth button, right, that allow me to undo the last change I did or redo, and quickly navigate with the different changes I did in the past. So
yeah, I think that's cool. That's available via the platform, and that's available via the iframe, and that's available via the API. So you can have access to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can go backwards and forwards and in platform, iframe, or directly embedded. All right, so it says, if I got it right, in the intro you mentioned the hops component. Can it be used with ShapeDiver? Can I use it to make different Grasshopper definitions cooperate in one ShapeDiver model?
No, so that was mentioned in, again, those questions are really good to introduce features. That was to also mention that we are working on a component in the ShapeDiver plugin that will work similarly to hops. So essentially, it would work like this: that you add the component. So let's say, I'm going to use a script component to show it, and the interface is not completely defined yet. But let's say right-click or double-click on it, and directly reference a ShapeDiver model from your account. And immediately the component will adapt to like all the inputs and outputs from this ShapeDiver model, right? So essentially directly call a ShapeDiver model from inside Grasshopper. So that's one thing. And by the way, the second feature of Rhino that will also release soon using our C#, so our .NET SDK that I mentioned, is an equivalent to the Grasshopper player. So essentially, the Grasshopper player, if you know it, is a way to turn a Grasshopper definition into a Rhino comment. So instead of having Grasshopper, define the inputs and outputs, and then call it as a comment directly in Rhino. And this is also something that we'll have as one of the first examples of our .NET SDK, is to turn a ShapeDiver model into a comment in Rhino directly.
All right, so next question. We still have some people here, so if you want to leave your questions, make sure to have them now so we can more or less calculate the time. So do you have an endpoint for getting tickets from a model if I re-upload a Grasshopper definition to the same ShapeDiver model? I think that's related to versioning.
I think no. It's not related to versioning. It's related to programmatically. So that's another feature that will be possible using the platform API, programmatically uploading models, so not using even the platform. And through this API, it will surely be possible to get the ticket. I think Alex, so our CTO, might answer in the chat if that's already available in the API or not. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, while we wait for this answer, maybe I can take another question.
The next one would be, will there be more plugin support in Platform 2.0? So how do we support plugins?
Yeah, so we are actually reworking the way we work on supporting plugins now to make it much more efficient. So basically, I have a much more efficient way to check from all the plugins we already support if there's new versions, what's new in these versions, and quickly check, that everything is compatible so that we can update plugins, but also, be able to check and add to our system much easier the new plugins that we don't support yet, right? So we always have a list. So definitely, if you send us on the forum the plugins you want supported, we look at them or we tell them why we can't support them if we can't. And right now we have several. I think on top of the list right now, there's Tree Sloth, there's some mesh tools. Yeah. There's a bunch. Like I think we have between 10 and 15 plugins that are being reviewed and that are gonna be added soon, and also big updates for several of the plugins we already support. So that's always gonna happen. We'll keep adding more and more plugins, of course.
Yeah, make sure you contact us via the forum when you need a new plugin version or a new plugin altogether. We will review it. We need explicit approval from the developer, so the developer needs to agree that we are going to add it to ShapeDiver. And then, sometimes there's minimum adjustments that need to be done. Sometimes it's very easy, sometimes it's more difficult. But we need to have a conversation with you also to understand your use case. So make sure to start a new forum post. Okay, so our CTO answered, it is possible to have an endpoint for getting tickets from a model, but he says that it's better to please address it via the forum. So Balázs, if you can, please start a new forum post asking this question about the endpoint. Then also from Balázs, will you support Rhino 7 on iOS for the new plugin? I can see latest version is 1.7.0.
Yes, so this we have to create. So we are fighting a bit with Food for Rhino here, but yes, we have to release a separate version of the plugin for iOS. But right now, the issue is that we added some features in the new plugin that are not compatible with iOS, and we have to.
I think he means Mac OS, no? Because Mac
OS.
OS.
Sorry, Mac OS. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I think he means Mac OS, not because iOS we don't support iOS.
But I meant Mac OS. Yeah, I'm not an Apple person, so I always use the wrong words. But yes, we release pretty soon, like the new plugin with the new functionalities, but in a version that's compatible with Mac OS.
All right, so the next one. So will Computation Analytics be available for legacy ShapeDiver Pro users as well? All right, so this one, I mean, just the elephant in the room. There are certain features that we're not giving to the legacy Pro users, and there are certain features that we're giving only to the new types of accounts we introduced mid last year. Right. In this case, we can definitely discuss your specific case. So make sure to send me a message. In this case is Bastian. Send me a message. Let's discuss where is your tool heading towards. We definitely want to support you to give you the right tools that you need. So send me a message. Let's discuss it. Initially, the answer would be no. These new features are only for our the latest plans that we introduced mid last year. All right. Any more development related to directly interacting with the 3D model?
Any more development? Well, now in the Viewer 3 API, it's easier and also more extensive what you can do related to interactions. So that's definitely not a bit beyond the scope of this webinar, but as we mentioned, there's going to be videos. There's already a lot of documentation about it. If you go to the to our documentation, well, here it is. See, 3 parts on interactions here, animations too. So all of those. So that's one part. The other side of this, which is also like on the side of like new features that we are planning, in the midterm, let's say, is to add components to the plugin that allow you to already define some of these interactions, animation and stuff directly from Grasshopper. So without having to use the API and write code, and in other words, available directly inside the ShapeDiver platform and not in embedded views.
Yeah. So Yevgeny was the one who asked this question. So make sure in end of May we're going to have this showcase where we're going to showcase all the features or everything what you can do with our API. And it's really impressive. I sometimes I'm like, wow, I didn't know we can do that. It's super impressive. And so we are going to make a better job at showing exactly what you can do with our API. Of course, this means you need to learn a little bit of web development, or in some cases, a lot of web development, because what you're creating is an online application, right? You're not just using Grasshopper. You're actually using web technologies to create an online application that is interactive via browser, right? So in this case, our API allows you to fuse both types of technologies, online applications and parametric applications and parametric files, and executing them via a browser. So yes, we've done a lot of different improvements. We're going to show them in our next webinar. Make sure you guys are subscribed to our newsletter or follow us on LinkedIn, as I was mentioning at the beginning. And finally, we have telepathy is such one plugin that we are all looking forward to being added. So
please request it on the forum, so we make sure we follow up on that. We have this system where we find everything that comes on the forum, and so you'll definitely get an answer there. I think the name sounds familiar. I think it might be in our pipeline, so I'll check with the team.
All right, I think that's it. That was the last question. I think pretty much on time, right on cue. It's 8 p.m., 2 hours. All right, so we still have a bunch of people here, so we really appreciate your time. We really value your feedback. Thank you for all the questions you've sent us here. We're ready to continue the conversation either via a video call. So make sure send us a message via the website or directly to me, or contact@shapediver.com. We can talk about your use case. We can explain these features again, anything that you guys need. We're gonna post a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, right? And we're gonna let everyone know via Twitter and LinkedIn. And I guess that's it. On behalf of the ShapeDiver team, we've been working on this very hard, and we really hope this can bring value to the way you use Grasshopper. And yeah, we will have many more webinars this year. Like the radio silence of the last 18 months was, they had a reason. Now we're ready to have conversations. We're ready to have webinars. We're ready to be out there talking about what we just built, and we want to listen to you, right? So if you have any type of feature requests, plugin requests, etc., just let us know. We want to know about you. And that's it. 8 p.m. in our time, right? Wherever you are in America. Maybe you are in India, somebody joined Zoom there. So yeah, have a great Monday. Let's kick some butt this week. Let's work hard, and let's create cool stuff with Grasshopper. All right, excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day. All right, bye-bye.